as concerns mount over the cases of what's believed to be foodborne diseases, some health experts are calling for the banning of toxic pesticides. This follows confirmation that organophosphate, known as Terbufos, was responsible for the deaths of 6 children in Naledi in Soweto. Now, this chemical is widely used in agriculture. Let's chat about this further now. Anna Shevel, unPoision SA Network Coordinator, joins us live now. Anna, good evening to you and thank you so much for your time. I mean, there's a list of pesticides, for example, that are hazardous that is available on your website. Is this widely available and communicated to every South African?
Thank you, Bongiwe. The list of highly hazardous pesticides is available to the public for the first time as a result of unPoision publishing it. It has not been public knowledge, as the national database and registry of all legally registered pesticides is not publicly available to South Africans. So this particular list is groundbreaking because it allows South Africans to really see which highly hazardous pesticides are being used in our agricultural sector.
Is there a reason why it wasn't been made public? Because one would potentially think that this is something that authorities would want available for everyone so that we can have information at hand.
The database is housed by industry and a subsidiary of CropLife called AgriIntel. And I believe just because they had the capacity and resources to house it, it has been outsourced. However, the Department of Agriculture is making efforts to house it and to publish it publicly, but this has not been the case for the last few decades.
And you are calling on the department at the same time, that is the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, to urgently embark on a process to phase out the use of toxic chemicals, starting with double HPs. What exactly is a chemical with HHPs?
It's a class of chemical that are highly hazardous pesticides. That's what it stands for. And those are pesticides that are acutely toxic. So if you're exposed or ingest them, it can cause serious harm. It can kill you, as well as chronically toxic. So if you're exposed over time, which many South Africans are, it can cause, it's carcinogenic, so it can cause many cancers. Mutagenic, it can mutate genes and affect reproductive tox, affect reproduction and things like gender, neurological disorders, and very detrimental to the environment. Also, the list of disorders is long. So these are a class of pesticide that really shouldn't be in our food system. It's madness that we're applying toxic pesticides to the food that we eat. And there are alternatives available. There's been no case of a pesticide being banned anywhere in the world that has caused the economic failure of an agricultural economy. For instance, Europe has banned a number of highly hazardous pesticides that are legally registered here. But Europe's agricultural sector is booming. It's much bigger than South Africa's. And on a land mass, if you had to make them the same size, Europe's agricultural economy is 300% bigger in terms of revenue. So you can't say that banning highly hazardous pesticides could collapse the agricultural sector. It's the opposite. There's incredible opportunity to develop safe alternatives and a local manufacturing industry here. That would grow our agricultural sector, and it would safeguard our health, our lives, our future. It's a no-brainer. So really calling on very strong leadership, Minister Steenhuisen, we need you to protect us.
And you talk about these alternatives that you say that could be just as effective. Is it because there's no willingness potentially to look at these alternatives, or is there something else at play that we are not seeing them? Because, for example, I ask this against the backdrop of Aldicup, for example. We've been hearing about it here on the show and how it's a banned substance, but it's simply being found in, for example, in Tsakane and Ekurhuleni, there were traces of it when kids had allegedly consumed a sandwich. Now, when you then have these banned substances that are doing the rounds and everybody has their hands on them, is there no willingness to then use alternatives that could be safer?
We have a problem in that I think the regulatory department lacks capacity. There's also a problem that there's a revolving door between competent staff in public office that then get poached by industry and then go and work to help circumvent. If they know the regulations very well, then it's easier to get around them. I think it's a capacity issue. There are alternatives, but there's not a registration process that works for alternatives for biological solutions and alternatives. All the same agricultural inputs need to go through the kind of regulatory requirements that toxic chemicals have to go through. And that's like trying to get a canoe to pass the safety test of a bullet train. They're two completely different mechanisms, and we don't have a registration process or the capacity in the department. There's a backlog of thousands of product registrations for alternative, safer products that the department just isn't getting to because of a capacity issue. And I do look at speculation, but I do also believe that it's been in industry's economic interests to perpetuate selling the products that it's got on its shelf. And especially if you think that most of our active ingredients are, in fact, I think all of them are imported from the global north and from the east. And there are bans elsewhere in the world. Africa and South Africa, with our weaker regulation and our desperation for yield and output, it's still the Wild West, and they can export all the ingredients that they can't sell in the north. There's still a very ready market for those toxic chemicals. So we're a dumping ground, and we're in a kind of a real life experiment.
Sure. And Anna, you know what you're saying is very worrying. And I wonder if we now have this backlog and we simply aren't moving on regulations as fast as we should, how much more of a danger are South Africans in then if we are still going to be seeing these hazardous, pesticides still roaming the streets?
We are disproportionately at risk. So just to give you an example, about 44% of the global agricultural workforce is exposed to acute poisonings annually, and the majority of them happening in the global south. South Africa, we have a very large poor population. We have a very big, our land mass, 80% of that is agricultural. So we do get disproportionately exposed, with women, children, farm workers and farm town residents being the most vulnerable to essentially the lack of robust regulation, the lack of monitoring, enforcement, and management.
Sure. And of course, we now need to really see if we can get the minister to also chat about this further. But let's talk about this list now. Someone who's watching us and they're saying, how do they then get access to it? Let's get your website address.
unPoision.org. Our list is going to be updated, but it's a comprehensive list, and you can find it there. And I'd also just like to invite all the government departments. unPoision is a high-level expert network. We have the top independent experts, and we are ready and willing to work with government to help safeguard South Africans, but also build a thriving and safe, fair agricultural sector. We are pro-agriculture.
Anna, thank you so much. Appreciate your time. And of course, as you say, that list is going to be updated, but it is available now because a number of people have been asking for this kind of information. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. That was Anna Shevel, the unPoision SA Network Coordinator.